30, huh? Yeah.
30. You guys been, well, okay.
All right, welcome to Hammer Factor episode number 30. Thank you for listening. First, I want to get right into our co-host today. We have the strikingly handsome and unfortunately not available co-owner of Kern River Brewing and former Olympian in the kayaking discipline, Eric Giddens. Welcome back to the show, my man.
Thank you, guys, and I'll send you the check later for that wonderful introduction.
Grace usually all he wants is like t-shirts or some swag. That's all it takes to get on the show.
In that case, that's easy.
You see my Smalls to the Wall shirt I'm wearing right here?
Right. Yeah.
Goes a long.
Exhibit A.
Yeah. A t-shirt goes a long way on the Hammer Factor.
I see how you guys run this show.
Also on the show, we have Whitewater legend, co-owner of Immersion Research, and I don't know, I'm just going to say the Theo Berman of the Hammer Factor.
Theo Berman. Wow. Do people even know who he is
much
anymore?
we could go with that.
The Tommy Hillicky of the Hammer Factor.
Well, that means a lot. I'd say you're the John Grace of the Hammer Factor, which says something about your staying power.
Okay. Got a good show lined up. I'm going through the show notes here that John wrote out, and these are really good. Looks like we got a good show. But first, while we have the opportunity, and I don't know if this is actually going to work, let's get our special celebrity guest on the line, and it is none other. Well, while I'm getting the guest on the line, Mr. Weld, tell us what you know about our special guest.
I mean, well, it's Benny Marr, right? He's somewhere up in Canada, basically on a tear. I mean, wouldn't you call it that of some sort?
I certainly would.
I mean, they ran, well, the big news, I guess, is they ran the headline, as it were, is that they did the Stikine twice in a day, right? Twice. I remember when you guys ran it once in a day, and that was unmanageable. I mean, you've been there. I've never been there. What do you think of that?
I think it's worthy of being on the Hammer Factor is what I think.
No portages, right?
That's my understanding, but what we're going to do is we're going to find out all of the details right now. Let's see if our boys answer the phone. I've had some brief messaging with these guys, and it looks like Ben, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Hey,
Holy
Ben.
cow.
We got him. How about that? Way up in God knows where in the Northwest Territory. Welcome to the show, Ben Marr. Thanks for coming on.
Hell yeah. Thanks for having me. This is awesome. We're going right now.
Yeah, I did. Well, we have Eric Giddens and John Weld on the line. Lewis is on safari, so he couldn't make it to the show today. But let's get right into it. Where are you at right now, Ben? What's going on?
I am in a small town of Fort Simpson in the Northwest Territory. So this is the town that people kind of fly in and out of to get on the Nahanni River.
Okay.
Which I'm sure you guys have heard of, and probably a lot of your listeners have too. It's like a classic Canadian canoe route.
And so what brings you all the way up there?
I'm up here with Jared and Aniel Solstice, and we are trying to get on a first descent in this really spectacular canyon that's inside the Nahanni National Park. And we were planning on putting on tomorrow, but we've kind of run into logistic problems and permission. We need permission from the park, so that's kind of what we're working on up here right now.
Very cool. So you, before we get into some of the recent paddling trips that I believe you guys have all been on together, are you like in meeting with the provincial park people trying to get in there? Is it a matter of using certain roads? What are you guys needing permission for?
It's basically throughout the process of jumping through all the hoops to get in there, and we needed a film permit, even though we're just kind of using our GoPros, just because we're professional kayakers. Even we have like all these permitting, but what happened was no one mentioned that we needed permission from the park superintendent to go run this river, and it's in the deepest part of the canyon. It's like 1,000-foot vertical wall, boxed-in gorge. That happens to be where the whitewater is the easiest, but they're pretty concerned about our safety in there, and if we do hit the button, so to speak, how they would possibly rescue us. So right now we just kind of like detailed our plan, put it on a map with the rapids and descriptions of how we'll tackle each whitewater problem, and the superintendent is taking that to some like high angle rescue people to be advised by them, and that's what we're waiting on.
Well, put me down as a reference if you have them call me.
I asked him if I could provide my own expert, and he said no.
So you guys flying? I mean, the idea would be to fly into the put-in for this run.
Yeah, we fly into a lake, which is about a 2.5 kilometer bushwhack, which took the first descent attempt back in the 80s about 9 hours with their inflatable duckies to do.
Oh.
So we're hoping to cut down on that time, and then we're about 40K from the start of the Scimitar Gorge.
Killer. How are the mosquitoes?
Dude, zero. It's amazing. I have no idea like what's going on, if it's the time of year, but right now it is sunny, like 20 degrees Celsius, and no bugs. So we lucked out. We even went to the Slave Man, and the bugs were like really manageable.
Whoa.
Are you sure you're in Canada?
Yeah.
I am, dude. I'm positive.
Maybe just call it Mexico.
Well, Ben, let me get right into it here. I'm going to assume you need no introduction, and maybe we'll talk about some of your exploits. A couple things I want to mention is, Ben, you were the first person to paddle Site Z Rapid on the Stikine River, which I've marveled at several times and never dropped into. And then this year, word has it that was it just you and Aniel who completed 2 descents of the Stikine in a day?
No, Jared, it was the 3 of us. So Aniel, Jared, and I all went up to the Stikine together this year and spent about 2 weeks up there, including, our last 2 descents, we did it in one day, yeah.
The last 2 descents, and you did 2 descents in one day, and did you make any portages on those descents?
No, we didn't. That was kind of throughout this trip, so we went up there with a few goals. One was to check out the canyon at higher flow, so our first trip was a little higher water than we'd ever seen it, or quite a bit higher. And the 2 in a day. Oh, here comes an airplane. The 2 in the 2 in a day was something that Aniel and I would have kind of thought about last year when we were up there running laps on it, and we did a fast lap, so we did a 5, just over like 5 hours and a half. I can't remember, and that's with stamina, like you could totally pull that off twice. So that's kind of how we decided to turn that idea into a goal.
I'm guessing you guys were probably in sea kayaks, like river or something. Or what were you guys?
Oh man, there were times that a sea kayak would have been just amazing to be in, but yeah, we were in. Paul and I were in our tuna tubes. Oh yeah, we didn't do any portages there, but we did have some pretty weird lines. It was low water, so that rapid actually looks kind of different when you're sitting in your kayak and it's low water. So we were popping up all over the place in there.
So
I mean, Grace, you've been there. Put this in perspective. I mean, what in terms of like paddling accomplishments? Where would you rank this?
That's hard to quantify, but
That's a difficult question. But
let me just tell you how.
Understand the magnitude of this, because I think it's amazing.
Yeah, let me just tell you. So first of all, and I don't know anything about your trip, so Ben, correct me. But what happened in this trip was, I'm sure that these guys had to get up before the sun was up, put on a river, float through a gorge as a group of three. The plan to not portage anything, that has to have like a full layer of nerves, knowing that you guys are just going to rally and bomb into everything, Site Z included. Get off the river, have the, time put in beforehand to have the stamina, not only physical but mental, make it through the whole river, and then drive back up and repeat. I don't know, it's just mentally daunting to me. And that's why when I brought this up as something we should do on the Hammer Factor, and what I really wanted to focus on is, certainly without a doubt, it's a huge physical challenge, but I just can't get over mentally wrapping my head around it. Can you recap the day, when you started, who you had for shuttle, just how you guys got it done?
Yeah, so we woke up at, alarms went off at 4:30. Still dark, but, you could go earlier, especially earlier in the year. And the day before, we shuttled my truck down to the bottom. I have, I've got a pickup truck, good tires, so it can go fast on that dirt road. We worked at trying to get someone to work with us to drive the shuttle so that, we could all kind of rest, but we had to do that part on our own. And our second shuttle, we were really fortunate. Our friend Hector McLennan, he lives in, I think I said his last name wrong, which I'm actually happy about, but he lives in Terrace. He's actually with Louis G on the Susitna safari, if that's what they ended up doing. So he was on his way to Alaska. He picked up my truck after our first lap. We slid in the water. I can't remember. I think at 1:30 or 2. No, it was 2 for our second lap, and he picked us up at the bottom, which was amazing. So, yeah, as far as the stress on the trip, earlier in our trip up there, when I started to get pretty fatigued, my kind of the quality of my lines kind of took a hit. So I started to get nervous about trying to do it twice in a day because my body was tired, and I feel like my kayaking was suffering from that. But I came back out of that. The water got a little lower, which makes the river a little less pushy. So when we were setting out to do it, I felt very confident at the top and during both laps. So nice. Mentally, it was actually, I felt like I was in a really good place. And in general, the way we run the river last year and this year is we do 2-day trips, and that way you can kind of spend a little bit of every day on the water. So we're paddling, 20 to 40 or 50K each day almost. So physically we were good, mentally we were good, and the river's pretty well mapped out in our heads. And for me, the most tense parts would be from Pass Fail through Site Z. Those rapids get me. They seem like big moves and the most consequential. And then again, in the kind of the third day when you're in the Wall 2 through pretty much Chicago, that can be a tense part. Especially with 3 of us, it's like you're trying to dial in your own line, but there's there's 2 other kayakers that they've got to have a smooth line too to keep everything moving. So, it felt really good.
What were your
putting in the second run? Yeah, it felt good. Just like robo kayaker is kind of how I was feeling.
Nods and stares. That's pretty rad. How long did both runs take?
We were just over 6 hours for each. So they went very well, super consistent. It was really funny. We popped out of Site Z on our first run. It was 7 a.m. So we went, stopped, had a little bit of breakfast, and kept going. And on our second run, we did something similar at Wolf Tracks, which is typically the night 2 camp spot for the typical 3-day Stikine trip. So we had a break there and ate some food. So I think the first run ended up being right around 6 10, and the second run just a little bit longer than that, but we had kind of a longer break on the second run.
Nice.
So what's next after this? I mean, do you guys have big projects coming up in the next year or so? I mean, I keep thinking about places like the Sangpo, or places where there's been a couple of major expeditions that have had a really tough go of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think, dude, the Sangpo is definitely, it's on the dream list. You know, there's you're kind of up against the fact that it's not a first descent to really appeal to funding. However, it's such a spectacular river in place with such a history, especially within, you know, our kayaking lore, that I think sooner or later it could be possible that a trip gets organized in there. And then, of course, there's a lot of political issues with going into that area. For us, like, yeah, we've got this trip that we're pretty excited about up here in the Northwest Territories, and then after that, I'm hoping to get on the freestyle program again in Manitoba, and these guys are heading back to Europe, and I'm really, really hoping that we're all going to be meeting up soon in Pakistan, where Aniol was doing some kayaking on the Indus and surrounding rivers last year, and he's pretty fired up to get a team back in there this October.
Nice. Let me back up a little bit to your trip, to your doubleheader up there. What did you bring in your boat? Did you bring even a dry bag with sleeping bags, or did you fully just roll with a sack of food, or how did you do it?
I went just food, so I brought like a breakfast on the first run, which I ate. I didn't really eat after that. We stashed some food in my truck, so I made like a super stout, like quinoa, peanut butter, sweet potato mix, and it was awesome, and I just like hammered that on the way back up there. And we had food back in the truck being dropped down, but on the second run, same thing. I just brought some snacks, and I didn't really eat. There's definitely, it would be smart to bring more. I brought a lighter, but I really felt confident, and I think on the second run we're all kind of on the same page. Like that was our 8th and 9th run in our trip, so we're all like pretty confident. Of course, you know, when you're in there, you're up against some really locked in remote areas, so we were definitely at the bare minimum, almost like foolish end of what we were bringing in. But like I said, we're like very confident in, you know, the river level and our kind of endurance at that point to make it through everything safely.
Wow.
Ben, I got to ask you, what motivates you to even take on something like this? And, you know, you get off the first lap and, you know, wanted to sit down and have a beer, call it a day, or did you guys have a beer?
No, we didn't. We didn't have it. I had some wine after the second one that I asked Hector to bring, but yeah, it's a funny one. It's hard to really answer, but I guess as simply as possible, it's just turning an idea into something that you executed. So when you look at, okay, so we ran the river in around 5.5 hours. Like there's totally enough daylight to do that twice, and then, well, let's do it. That's pretty much how it went. And then this year, yeah, like I said, I had some nerves about it earlier on because I felt like I just wasn't. I was just tired and kind of taking a lot of waves to the chest on a few runs, or a couple runs, sorry, and that kind of wears on you. And especially when this river was a little higher, like sometimes the waves it feels like they're just slapping at you, like they're pretty powerful, thick waves. So I was pretty nervous, didn't know about it, and then I think for me, as soon as the water level came down a bit and the river mellowed out, I felt like, yeah, super confident about that it was totally doable and that we were in a great position to do it.
So how do you, I mean, you have an amazing travel schedule, but at the same time, you're also famously, at least among certain circles, a non-sponsored paddler. how do you put all this together? I mean, I know if you're John Grace, you marry into money, but you're not married as far as I know. So what's your secret?
How do you make it all happen, Ben? Tell us a little about that.
Because you're kind of living the dream in a lot of ways. I mean, obviously you're an amazing talent, but at the same time you're pushing it. You're using every iota of ability.
I'm 1,000,000% living like, the dream, my version of it. And I think a huge turning point for me, or tipping point, if you will, is I used to work on the drilling rigs. And drilling rigs at one point, I probably started doing that when I was 19 or 20. I can't remember. On and off, you could work a total of 3-4 months a year and have enough money to kind of travel around the rest, especially once you got an income tax return in the spring. I always counted on that. And then I did seismic drilling, same sort of thing, low commitment, large paychecks. And I ended up doing a trip to Colombia where I got very sick, came home, recovered from that, and decided I couldn't really go back to work in the cold with a shot immune system. And this was 3 or 4 years ago, and I just kind of decided, hey, if I want to be kayaking full-time, then I can't be distracting myself by going to work. So I just stopped going, and it all kind of unfolded after that, and I don't really know how it works out, and it could all explode at some point. But I just have a few sponsors that are helping to support me throughout the year. As I get older, different projects seem to just arise. I really count on them coming about each year. Film projects, like commercial shoots. I did this vodka commercial 2 years ago, or 2 summers ago, that was hilarious and really helped me out. And I did a commercial with through the same contact with a plywood company, actually from your guys' neck of the woods. What's it called, LP or PL? This wood company, they made this stout subfloor. So stuff like that, I just did a commercial shoot with them. It was 3 days. It was pretty lucrative, and so there's no secret. I'm not a very financially responsible person. I can't boast to having some sort of sweet system for saving money. Money comes in and it goes out, and my goal is to be as close to the whitewater I want to be on at any given time of year. And if there was a secret kind of ingredient to all that, it would be to speak to the fact that I kind of travel a lot, live on the road, and I have tons of very generous friends who, I can stay with kind of all over the place, throughout Canada, throughout the U.S., and that way I can keep my cost of living relatively low.
One thing a lot of people may not know about you, Ben, is you're on some level a vegetarian. Is this correct?
Yeah, on some level. I wouldn't classify myself as a vegetarian or any. There's no food title that I've heard of or sought out, but yeah, I don't really eat meat. There's definitely situations where I do, when it, if I've agreed to go to some dinner, or I want to go and hang out with some people, and there's situations where I'm not willing to say no to food or bring up my kind of food decisions into a situation. But yeah, as far as the food I buy, I don't buy meat from a grocery store. That would be the limit of it. But I've eaten meat that my friends have hunted or raised themselves, for sure.
How did you get? How did that all come about? How did what caused that transformation?
Initially, meat and dairy products require refrigeration, which is hard to do on the road, and coolers are a pain in the ass. I have a cooler now, but I haven't had one for years and years because they're just annoying. So when I stopped eating meat, which probably would have been because of some Facebook link that I clicked into, it would be along the lines of just doing my own little experiment. Okay, so if I don't want to eat meat, okay, I'll stop. What happens? And then for me, it was nothing. I don't crave it. It didn't affect my energy levels or stamina. So it was a pretty easy thing to do. And as far as the reasons for it, I would say you could pick just like a handful of like ethical reasons and environmental reasons would be why I would do that. And then just for health, like I don't need it. I get along just fine with smashing lots of veggies and beans. So.
Hell yeah. Well,
So rumor has it next year you're going to do an SUP descent of the Stikine. Have you guys picked out boards yet for this, or what do you?
I haven't committed to that idea. There's a few things on my to-do list in there first. One of which would be I'd put a dynamic duo descent ahead of any SUP effort, which is definitely an idea that's being thrown around. He has, yeah. So if he has a substantial section of that area, which really took down, the whole day one section a notch. Worst case scenario, you just all you need is the medium sized watershed. I believe I can't remember which one's called, the Chattooga.
The Chattooga.
And you are good. So as soon as that happened, I was like, okay, the little Akoi is out of the rotation. I only roll with the Chattooga now. Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, what boats were you in when you did this?
Anya and I were in Tuna 2s,
Yeah.
and which is sweet Stikine boat, like lots of space. Even though we don't need huge amounts, but it's got a lot of volume. For me, I'm a little bigger. I'm like 6 foot. And Jared was in the 9R regular size.
hell yeah. Well, I will.
And Jared was definitely in front all the time. He's a monster.
Well, I have been. I remember the first time I met you, Ben, was down here on the green, and you were down here with Grotmans. I don't even know if you remember that, but I have. It's been awesome watching your paddling career and your passion, and just to see that on the old Facebook the other day of you doubling it up. I was super impressed on this end. I'll tell you that.
Dude, thanks, man. And yeah, like it's all just part of the progression of comfort up there. I appreciate that. I remember petoning Sunshine about as textbook as you could right in front of you guys. That stung. And
I knew you were tough.
Yeah.
You hadn't quite figured out the booth, but I knew you were tough.
Yeah, it was in there somewhere. I should have been in a playboat still at that point. But yeah, you guys, I remember watching you guys pull off a one-day descent, and it just things like this happen, and it's just very refreshing for whoever's watching it to make sure that they don't kind of close in their what they think they can do or what they think can be done on that river or any. Same goes for the stuff in Cali that's getting run super fast or in a day or whatever. I'm sure there's going to be some people doubling up on some runs. The Lomlers have a great thing, double run, double fun. So that's kind of what we were going for, I think.
Hell yeah. Well, boys, do you have anything else for Benny before we let him get back to exploring the Northwoods?
Nope. Have a good time.
Yeah.
Keep living the dream, man.
Seriously.
Thank you guys, and yeah, appreciate it. Enjoyed the phone call, and yeah, hope you guys have a great day down there.
We'll have to do a follow-up after you guys get off the river. If you get a chance, I'll try and remind you, but just send me a message if that thing up there works out.
I will, man. Yeah, I'm sure it's going to work out. It's just a matter of us being patient and cooperative. So yeah, I'll hit you up.
All right. Well, tell the Sarasolis brothers hello, and thanks for coming on the Hammer Factor.
Thanks, Benny.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Cheers, guys.
Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.
I'm just telling you.
Well, I got a question for you.
All right.
So these 2 day or 1 day or 2 laps in 1 day descents, do you think we could kind of reverse that and do a 14-day descent on the Stikine? Think anybody would sponsor that?
Rat support. The whole time I'm thinking, at what point is the Stikine going to be like the Golly? Where there's just rafting companies and tour buses pulling up.
No room in the eddies.
There's Jackson playboating clinic going on at Pass or Fail.
Yeah, no, I'm shooting for like Middle Kings and like a 3-week trip, like something like that.
Right?
Come on.
Tornado, pack it full of gear.
Come on, you guys. That's incredible.
That is incredible. Yeah.
I mean, just the mental, just pulling that all together for that many hours of just,
It's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Grace, is it really that? I mean, how hard is it? Because I've heard, I have a paddler friend of mine who's done it. I'm not going to mention his name because I don't want to get him grief, but he claims it's basically, with a couple exceptions, class 4. But I'm hearing the way Ben's talking about it, I'm doing something entirely different.
Well, whoever that person is, they're an idiot. Like they have, like from now on, when they talk and they put their opinion out, just hold your hand up, because their opinion means nothing at this point. Whoever that person is and whatever role they have in your life, you need to get that person out.
This person was trying to talk me into going to a trip up there with a couple other people.
Well,
I was expressing reservations in terms of how much I've been paddling the past year or so versus the skill that required to do that river.
Well,
is that person sometimes a co-host on this show?
Whoever it is, I don't want to hear their name, because there'll be bumper stickers made about them, T-shirts, the whole 9 yards. But I will say it's much more water level is, it's a much more manageable when you're at that, 9, 10, 11,000 CFS flow. But when you get higher, it's never easy, but it gets full on. And like Ben was saying, that section from above Passerfeld all the way through Wassons down to the top of Sized, it links up. There's no pools there, so.
Right.
Well, I think the psychology of something like that is, this John doing like Middle Kings in a day, like it just grinds on you, and you can't let your guard down. Like it's very impressive, not just physically but mentally, to pull off something like that.
Yeah, that's my thoughts of it. I could easily see myself physically being able to handle that, but mentally going back up and putting back on and keeping it all together is mind-blowing for me.
Yeah, and you get to the bottom of the first lap and you're not even halfway there. You still got to shuttle and then run it again.
We don't have a policy council this week, so we do have a couple articles here. We've been a couple news stories we've been following here at the news desk at the Hammer Factor. Grace, you read some far out websites, I have to say, because you send articles and I have no idea what these are from.
Well, the Medium, and, you've never been to the Medium.com?
First of all, the Medium is very hipster, right? And when I mean hipster, I mean you're probably tapping into some very far left. I'm not going to say Antifa, but that kind of crowd is involved with the Medium.
Yeah,
right?
it may not necessarily be moot.
Anyway, this site's called...
Go ahead.
Yeah.
This site's called what?
Well, anyway, you found this article from Westwise, which I've never heard of. Westwise?
Yep, Westwise.
Right? This is you.
Yep.
And I guess Zinke went on vacation final week of the park review.
The only reason I brought this up and sent this out is because everything we've been talking about for the past 200 never how many days is how Zinke is going to review. He's putting so much effort. There are trade shows moving out of states, all kinds of things happening. This is a very big deal to a lot of people. And the only reason I sent this over is because with 1 week left for him to make the decision, the rigorous analysis, as they call it, he's on a Mediterranean vacation for the last week, So anyway,
I'm looking at the list of parks here, or national monuments. He's visited 8 out of, I'd say, about 30. Granted, some of them are like there's like a Pacific atoll, and obviously you can't go everywhere. But he has not visited a majority of them, that's for sure. And most of them are easy to access places like California, Oregon, and Idaho.
Exactly. So that was my point. We're going, he's cruising out on the, it's such a big deal. It's causing so much reaction. His analysis is supposed to be in depth, and he hasn't been to any of the national monuments, and he's currently on vacation. So that was it.
Well,
That's why
I think he's made up his mind. I think we can conclude that. I think the decision's made, and he's like, well, I'm going on vacation to Turkey or wherever he went. Greece.
Anyway, that was my whole point. I didn't want to get into too much discussion about that, but I just thought it was interesting.
Well, that was the weakest policy discussion we've ever had on this show.
Well, Lewis
that
isn't.
was the most uninformed, hurting policy discussion.
The absence of Lewis.
And to be honest, Eric, I was expecting you to step up a little bit here because you're kind of subbing in for Geltman, but there was nothing. Anyway.
Yeah, okay, so shall I be Lewis for a minute? And yeah. No, I can't do that. I mean, does it really surprise you, though, that a politician is being lazy and not doing their work? I mean, come on.
No, it doesn't. But I just thought it was interesting, and we've had so many discussions about it. And I figured that would seg into Lewis giving the update on this sort of deadline about this analysis, if there was any new news in Washington. But I don't think we're going to get that out of Eric.
I mean, we almost have the internet up here. I don't even know really who is elected. Who's the president? Who's the current president? I don't really know.
You're like Governor LePage in Maine, who, by his own admission, reads no newspapers and watches no TV.
I read the funnies.
Okay, gentlemen. Moving on. If you're ever in the market for some Olympic memorabilia, there may be some out there. Eric, this is your chance to shine. What do we got?
Right.
So we just got the news here that the eBay auction on Joe Jacobi's Olympic memorabilia has unfortunately closed. I was unaware that this was available. Otherwise, I'm sure I would have bid. And Joe, I love you, but I got to go down this list here of some of the things that were offered in your collection. Lycra rash guard, worn. You kind of lost me right there. Am I really going to actually pay any kind of money for someone who's used Lycra? John, have you ever worn another man's Lycra?
I don't wear Lycra, period.
What? Oh, come on, you totally have.
I'm not a film racer. What do I look like?
I could get burying that maybe in the bottom line somewhere, but that was the second item on the list. Check this out, a VHS tape. Sweet.
How much is the tape?
Well, it's all inclusive. Like if you buy anything, you get the whole lot. I believe that was my understanding of it. Right. White House memorabilia M&Ms. Two things. First of all, who saves those? And the second, this is from 1992. Like, are they fuzzy? Can you even tell they're M&Ms anymore? You know, evidently they don't melt in your closet. And then the last thing that really scared me away from this was the 1992 Olympic trials results on paper. That's where EJ took his last run down the course and knocked me off the Olympic team. So I cried a little inside when I was reminded about that. But
well, that would be. Yeah. So he wanted. I guess he was asking. It started at $877 was the opening bid. He must have itemized these things to come up with that number. Right?
Was that for the M&Ms and everything?
Yeah, the whole
all inclusive, plus more. I mean, there was some really cool stuff in there. There was uniforms, there was rings, there's other things too. But I kind of picked out my highlights, my personal highlights.
So for those of you who don't know, Joe Jacobi and Scott Strasbaugh won the gold medal in the C2 event in the '92 Olympics in Sao, and I built their boat.
Yeah,
what? Sure did. Yeah.
Wow.
There we go. A little piece of trivia.
Was the boat part of the auction?
The boat's hanging up in NOC. I saw it there.
Yeah.
I was down there with my kids paddling, and I saw it hanging up, and I was like, "Whoa! I remember that boat."
I built that. Did you tell your kids I built that?
I told them, and then they told
everyone in the store.
They just looked at me like I was a lying sack of S.
Which you are.
That's true, but not in that particular instance.
Anyway, I don't have anything to say about the Joe Jacobi.
Well, I can relate. So I was in the Olympics in '96, and Rebecca's got 2 Olympic things, and I was a judge and the TV. I've got like 3 closets full of Olympic crap that I would probably, well, I wouldn't get rid of. I'm a hoarder, but my wife would. She would sell it for $5 on eBay. But I know it's going to happen. Like, I'm going to be dead in the ground somewhere, and my family is going to pull out this giant chest of Olympic stuff and have no idea what to do with it. So I feel for Joe. I know you try to clean things out every now and then, and I thought like my Panama Jack 1996 Olympic hat would be worth something, but it's not worth it.
Yeah.
Sentimentally it is, but so it goes.
All right.
Well,
Moving along.
Love you, Joe.
Let's love you, Joe. No offense here. Let's move on to this.
I should throw in I love you too, Joe. Lest we all forget. Joe and I grew up together paddling, so.
Did he thank you for building that boat?
I can't recall.
Moving on to SUP. Can we get into some whitewater sup?
This is the only reason I agreed to come on the show, John.
There you go. All right. So
I thought we did. We talked about, it was the punchline of my joke about SUPing the Stikine. Boom. Let's move on.
no, let's dig into the real world of whitewater SUP. And we threw around the video of Spencer Lacey, his highlight video, sticking Wonder Falls. Even Lewis was impressed with this.
Mildly impressed was his exact words.
Okay, well.
Let's temper that a little bit.
Hey, that's a long way from where we were at before we watched the video. So
right.
My question is this a bubble that's ready to burst, or has it fully eclipsed whitewater in the world?
I can't believe this is like us. I can't believe we're still talking about whitewater SUP at this late date. And I'm gonna end the argument right now, and I'm gonna tell you the answer to your question. I have supped on that wave in BV, right?
Okay.
That is the premier attraction of the BV supping scene, is that wave down there at the play park or whatever it is, right? It is seriously like watching paint dry compared to real surfing. I mean, you stand there, and I think you hop up, but you can hop, like switch your feet, or you can attempt a flat spin, and that's it.
Well,
I mean, that's it. That is it. And the water's freaking freezing. You fall in, and it's breathtakingly cold, and you're done. And then you watch people kind of clumsily work their way down the river like newborn deer, you know. I don't get it. I really don't. Eric, help me out here, because I know you guys were doing it out there in Kernville because you really have had nothing else going on for the past 5 years because you didn't have any rain. But
I'm not going to argue with you. I think you're spot on everything, but people love it.
Yeah, but they can't love it very long. I mean, people
but
love.
They do.
Love playboating. You remember that? And they don't love it anymore.
Okay.
Right?
Well, first of all, in Colorado, they're kind of trendy anyway, right? Did we just lose like half of our audience?
Well, let me tell you.
But at the same time, they have all these play parks. There are all these play parks all over, and yeah, the BV wave isn't the best sup wave. But if you watch like Miles Harvey down in Salida, I mean, he's doing ollie, kickflip 360s. Like, there's really cool stuff that you can do. Do I think that the equipment is where it needs to be yet to actually, start to challenge kayaks in terms of what you can run and how gracefully you can run it? No, it's not there yet. But it's a really new sport. I mean, whitewater sup is really maybe 4 or 5 years old. And you think about kayaks in the 60s and where they are now, like there's going to be a huge change. So I think it's not, I don't think the bubble is at its peak. I think it will continue to grow. I'm with you. It is kind of like watching paint dry, but when you do it, it's pretty fun. And I'd rather do it in the ocean, but when there's a river nearby and a good wave to play on, or it's just not challenging enough for a kayak, yeah, I'll absolutely jump on a sup and have a great time.
We got to get Geltman back. Are we done with you yet? This is killing me.
Outnumbered. You're so outnumbered.
This is crazy. This is insanity. Well, let me explain to you about Colorado, as I was trying to do earlier. Colorado is a place where if there is a sport done in the outdoors, a person from Colorado will buy the most expensive piece of gear for that, regardless of how short the season is, right?
Yeah.
Paragliding, cross-country skiing, downhill skiing, land surfing, the whatever, the mountain boarding, they have it all, right? And then they buy the accessories for it, which is great. That's why Colorado is a great place to sell gear, because these people are serious outdoor recreationalists. But it's a false. I mean, you get a false sense of the market by judging people from Colorado. I mean, you go to the dentist, and the dentist is like in a unitard because he's going to go for a trail run as soon as he gets done with you, and then he's going to go mountain unicycling, and then he's meeting up people for a trail run again. So I don't know.
Yeah, well, I think what you're also discounting is SUP is not just a river phenomenon. I mean, in Southern California, it's probably eclipsed surfing almost in terms of popularity. I mean, maybe not, but
I mean, ocean's
it's
different. I agree. In the ocean, it's a whole different thing.
Dude, the paddleboarding
but it's-
wave is crushing you, John Weld. You cannot resist it. It is coming down on you from 15 feet overhead.
Can we move on to something that's more interesting?
well,
to
and
us?
the irony is this is something that can benefit you, John.
Crushing.
SUPers don't buy anything. They buy sunblock. They buy a board, they buy a paddle, they buy sunblock. And that's it. They have a t-shirt already. They have their board shorts. You know?
Eric, we got to
People
get together offline
Should
and
make
come
dry
up.
suits for SUPers, but they get them already for free because they're sponsored kayakers who are bored.
We need an intervention here. There needs to be some
Well,
sort of... Or a Hammer Factor
think-
SUP festival.
Well, I think what happened, so last time we talked about potential sponsorship, so maybe Kern River can sponsor a 15-minute sub-segment on every Hammer Factor show. And just watch Weld squirm.
Oh,
It's worth
Okay.
it. It's worth it just for that.
listen.
Okay,
let's move
John,
on.
you have to admit, watching Spencer Lacey's video,
I will
he's doing
say
some pretty...
it made me pause to think that maybe I'm missing the boat here entirely. I will say that. I have to give Spencer Lacey a shout out because he was doing some stuff that, to be honest, I didn't think was possible on a board. Particularly
Now-
landing Wonder Falls. I mean, that's
Yeah,
crazy.
I mean, I think that in 3 to 4 years, people will be running the upper yak on subs.
That could be.
Yeah. And
All right.
at that point, would it be legit?
That's a good question. I have to say it could be. You know, I mean, if provided they're doing it with some kind of grace and style, and they're actually, you know, they're not just
Not
surviving.
swimming every rapid.
Yeah, I mean that doesn't count in my mind. That's a stunt.
Okay.
All right, let's talk about something that's been
Okay.
really on my mind the past week. I'm on fire with this idea.
All right, let's hear
I'm
it.
so excited about this.
Hit it with us.
So I watched Cavu Day, the movie, about
great
2 weeks
movie.
ago, right? Cavu Day came out in the mid-'90s, right? This was probably one of the first big-budget whitewater kayaking films. It starred Dan Gavir and I think Arne Shefflin. Remember that character?
Bert
And
Summers.
Bern.
All right.
Yeah, Bert
Yeah.
Summers was in there. Mid-'90s. This was when I was still teaching kayaking. This movie came out, changed everything. In fact, if there's one thing that started IR, it was this movie. Because this movie made me think that there is an endless summer out there boating. It was a whole paradigm shift in how I looked at kayaking. But then, and you can watch it. In fact, in our show notes, I have the link. They have it up on Vimeo. Someone posted up on Vimeo the whole thing. I think it was on VHS. But, and, you know, I'll be fair. It's a little dated right now. The first 15 minutes are really strong, and it kind of goes off from there. And in the beginning, they make a little call out to how all the rivers they paddle are threatened by damming and pollution, which I think at this point just sounds adorable. I mean, it's so quaint because right now we're worried about global boiling and ammonia storms or something. I mean, it seems like much bigger dangers. But anyway, I had this epiphany. I'm watching these guys boat, and I'm saying to myself, yeah, you know what's badass? Badass is running class 4 or 5 whitewater and using that same boat to back surf and flat spin on a wave and throw ends, right? That's when playboating was cool. What killed playboating was playboats, right? Because playboats kind of suck. I mean, ultimately, they're kind of one-trick ponies, and they got to so focused on one skill set and one thing to do at such a limited scope that they just ran out of air. You know, they just ran out of steam, I think. But you look at the Hurricane, which these guys are all in. They were crushing it. You know, they were splatting castles. They were flat spinning out. And when you could flat spin a Hurricane on a wave, that's friggin' hard. You know, and it was badass. So, and that's going to come in a second to our boat reviews, this idea.
Well, let's transition right into that right now because...
But everyone should go out and watch Cavu Day because this is, I think, with the way boat designs are going now, this movie is suddenly relevant again.
Hey, John, you remember that guy Dan Gavir?
I do remember. He's been gone for... We lost Dan Kavir to supping, 10 years ago? You should do a little memorial, what are we, what's the word I'm looking for? Where they do like a little video presentation of his life, you know?
a memoir?
A memoir, oh yeah.
Well, what we should do is get Dan Gavir on the Hammer Factor, and it can be You, Eric, myself, and Dan Gavir.
I got to get Lewis on for one thing. Dan Gavir said he wants to come on, right?
Yeah.
He's an entertaining guy and a great paddler.
Big shout out to Dan Gavir, one of the greatest professional athletes. People don't know that Dan was a professional mountain biker at one time, a professional snowboarder at one time, a professional kayaker at one time, and a professional paddleboarder currently.
And Cabu Day, the movie that he's featured in, phenomenal. It was a game changer.
Okay, let's move off that.
All right.
Grace,
All right.
or Weld, you got on you had a chance to paddle the Delta V.
You and I both have paddled the Delta V.
I paddled the prototype. I have not paddled the production.
Well, and to be fair, I paddled the Delta V on the loop, which is, a class 3 run. So hardly put into its element. So
Well, what'd
I
you
don't
think?
say
You can get an idea of the boat, the way it feels, the hull.
Well, okay. So here's the thing, right? So for those of you who don't know, the Delta V is Liquidlogic's New Creek boat, designed by Pat Keller. Pat Keller has been working with Liquidlogic in a couple boats, most notably the Brap, right? I don't think Shane had anything to do with the Brap or the Delta V. Is that correct?
Yeah, for the most part, yeah.
So I came into this with really high expectations, right? Because I think the Brap is one of the best boat designs going and has been made in my mind, and that I can, as far back as I can remember. So I have to be honest, it wasn't that exciting. But again, I'm paddling a creek boat on the loop. I don't know if it was the fact that creek boats in general are hard to be exciting. I mean, what are the requirements of a creek boat? I mean, you don't bow pin. You know what I mean? They're able to track somewhat, so you can get from one place to another. But beyond that, you're not looking for very much.
Yeah, you don't want a creek boat to be exciting. You want it to be very unexciting.
Yeah. So I don't know. It didn't rock my world. Grace, I mean, you paddle the prototype. I can't imagine it's that much different.
No, what I found is a boat that anybody can jump in. It turned really easily. To me, it's a Grande 2.0. It's a improved Grande with some rocker profile features, cockpit size, some various things like that. So in that regard, I think it's a winner. Is it I think what you're saying, John, is that every time Pat Keller comes out with something, it's going to be revolutionary, like the green boat. Totally changed longboats. The Brat fully created a whole new category. But this didn't quite exactly do that for you. So, I don't know. It's
I mean, you had similar feelings.
Yeah.
I mean, you were.
I think that for any 8'6" boat, it's going to be as good as it gets. Personally, I think that that's too short for my taste.
I mean, you like the Nirvana. I mean, you came back with Nirvana with a very different vibe.
And the 9R.
Yeah.
So.
Well, let me ask you this, guys. I mean, do you want every boat that comes out to be Nirvana or a 9R? Because those are definitely sort of high-end, narrower, faster boats. Like, what's wrong with actually having something like a Nomad that a lot of people can get into and get them down the river without any sort of incidents?
I'm not saying that's not a good thing.
No, I think there's a point to that. Yeah,
I
think
saying
the thing
that's
is,
what I want. I'm talking about my personal.
I think when you get better at boating, you start to look for faster, longer boats.
Yeah,
I mean, that's kind of my take on it.
But I think the boat designers can get caught in that trap of trying to do the next great thing when really, I mean, you got to remember your audience. They want comfort, they want stability. They want to be able to turn the boat. Carving, maybe a little bit. Like,
all right. So the other boat I paddled, and I don't think you paddled this boat yet, Grace, have you? And I can't see how Eric Giddens got hands on this, but I paddled the yet to be unnamed Piranha River Runner, which I guess you could classify like a Brap type boat. It's 9 feet. It has, the sort of the slicey back end. I mean, it looks like a Brap category boat is the best way I could put it. I don't think Robert's named it yet or Piranha's named it yet, but I paddled on the Upper Yacht, which is a much better place to test a boat. And to be honest, I loved it. I mean, I love this class of boats anyway, but this was, in my opinion, phenomenal. I'll tell you, it has a bigger bow than the Brap, for one thing. It looks like a 9R bow. It has more of a plane. It has a planing hull or something a lot closer to a planing hull than the Brap does. I think perhaps much more displacement hull. John Regan, who lent me the boat, was warning me it's harder to squirt than the Brap. I don't think that was true at all. It's not an easy boat to squirt. I mean, you need to be on a strong eddy line, but that's what I want anyway. I've said it before. I'll say it again. I don't particularly like boats that you can squirt anywhere. Those aren't stout enough to run harder whitewater. But man, I love this thing. It was so much fun to paddle. And just like the Brap, it paddled a lot like a slalom boat, if not more than like a slalom boat. So to me, that's what I'm looking for in a boat. The other hand, I got off the river and I was talking with Shimrock about it. Jesse Shimrock, who's a local paddler around here, and he called the Brap and the new Piranha boat, which he'd paddle, also pigs. So
what a weirdo.
I mean, you can't win as a boat designer.
What does he paddle? That's so much 40 years.
He was like his thing was he would just as soon paddle a 9R because a 9R would do everything that new Piranha boat would do, and you could run creeks in it. But I'll tell you what, this new Piranha boat has a big enough bow that I would run hard. I certainly run the Blackwater in it, which is easy as class 5.
Yeah, may not be great for an overnighter or filling full of gear, but you could take it out in your class 5 day trip. I mean,
sure. It's fast and it boosts like a mofo, man. It just lays it out. So it was really fun.
Well, personally, I'm really stoked to see this style of boat come back into play. It's kind of like the revitalization of the RPM, right?
Or the RPM.
I mean, I've got an Axiom that I use. Yeah,
the Hurricane.
It's good to see longer boats coming back, which is great. I mean, now we're talking about 9 foot, 8 foot 6 boats being too short. So it's nice to have that coming back into the sport again. And then that's slicey back tail, because it's so much fun. It turns the river back into 3D again.
That's right.
Without just having to wear your nose plugs and earplugs all day.
Well, that's right. And I'm going to bring this back to our very first episode of the Hammer Factor. Do you remember the title of that one, Mr. Weld?
I don't.
Did the Party Brap save whitewater? And now we've got a whole category. I mean,
I think so.
Whitewater's back. This is
the green boat and the green boat and the Stinger came out, and they're obviously meant for race boats, but a bunch of people leapt on those as an alternative to running their local run in a creek boat, which, to be honest, is quite boring for most people. But the green boat and that kind of boat they're not really that great either. You know what I mean? They're kind of one-trick ponies in the sense they're just fast. But now I think the idea is forming a lot better into these new river running boats, which are far better than, remember like the crossover craze that was about 5-6 years ago with like the Little Joe and I don't know all these boats, but they were really too playful. But these are real river runner boats. You know what I mean? And if you're a good boater, man, they're a heck of a lot of fun. Yeah. So.
Yeah. I think this is our only hope against paddleboarding, Weld.
We lost him again.
What's this weird stuff?
Hey, so my only request from Piranha is to come up with a better name than the last boat design, because I still can't remember what that thing is called. The creaky boat thing. The what?
The Machno.
The Machno. Yeah.
I already forgot it. It's yeah.
We were trying to get Robert Pearson on the show today, but we couldn't get a hold of him. So we're going to track him down. He cannot hide from the Hammer Factor.
Yeah.
For the next Hammer Factor, can you guys come out with the best and worst boat names in the history of kayaking?
Yeah, let's put that on the list. I like that.
All right.
Okay, now let's get on to a little viewer mail here. And this one kind of relates back to our 87 seconds grab that bitch banter from episode back. This comes at us from Kyle Kraft Culkin. Big thanks to Kyle for writing in. He says, "Hey y'all, just listening to episode 28, and there was an extended discussion about the viability of the grab that bitch technique. I completely agree when boating with friends. My primary mindset for rescue is to grab that bitch quick. However, as an instructor and instructor trainer, I feel that an organization has a responsibility to their instructors to limit the amount of risk their employees take in a work environment. What do you all think about that distinction, especially when it comes to training the community versus staff? By the way, women's only episode was awesome. Keep them around." Kyle.
I like how he segued from the grab that bitch to the women's only episode. He didn't want to offend anybody. Well, I don't know. I kind of go both ways on this one. I think that your boat is your best safety tool on the river. And so personally, I feel like rescuing from the boat and getting there quickly is super important. But I guess if you have employees, you want to keep them out of harm's way. You're entitled to do that, but
they shouldn't be running
time is
class
of the
4
essence.
whitewater or
Yeah.
5 or whatever they're running.
Time is of the essence, so you want to get them quick.
Let me ask you a question, guys. Would you risk your life in the pursuit of rescuing one of your friends?
To a degree, without a doubt.
To a degree, of course, to a degree. But I'm asking to the ultimate. I mean, would you throw caution completely to the wind?
I'd say, yeah, I've done it a bunch. I mean, if I looked at something, I was like, if I jump in there, I'm just going to die or just get caught just like that other person. But if I think there's a chance and I see it going down, I mean, I'm certainly not going to jump off a bridge to try and save somebody's life onto concrete or, But I think, yeah, without a doubt. I mean, I don't know how you could not, I think if you can do something, I think that most people will. Do you not think like that?
That's a tough one, because there are certainly certain people I would do that for, and then at the same time, then it becomes a habit. So like if you're constantly making daring rescues, then you don't have time to kind of make that decision: is this safe? Is this not safe? And kind of what comes to mind, I don't know if you remember the death on Dinky Creek a few years ago, the Italian kayaker. He ended up chasing his buddy's boat into a rapid and hooking himself to it. Like, I mean, where do you draw that line between, is this a smart thing to do? Is this a dangerous thing to do? So if you're constantly doing things that are sort of on the edge, the edge gets farther and farther. So I don't know. I try to use really good judgment when it comes to rescuing people and not getting myself in harm's way. But at the same time, like if it's clearly a potential fatality, I would definitely go a lot farther than I would for most cases.
I mean, do you make a distinction between like your crew, like you're paddling with your boys or your gals, and then you stumble across somebody who's in a bad situation? Do you treat them differently than if someone that you know they would risk their life getting you, or is that taken off the table?
That's a tough one. Like I try not to put myself in that position where I'm paddling with people that I don't know or trust.
Right.
But at the same time, yeah, if you come into a situation that is completely out of your control and out of your group, honestly, I would be more cautious in that situation. It's kind of a dick move, but I don't know. How about you, John? Would you save me?
Yeah, probably.
I think the hardest part, these are all hypotheticals, but what happens when it actually happens? How do you react on the spot? And it's hard. You can sit here and say you'll do this or that all day, but until you actually get in that situation. And going back to the email, so then you have to have a policy for your instructors. I think making sure that they keep themselves safe is probably a smart move.
Yeah, he's an unusual situation because, that's more of a legal issue than it is a practical issue.
Well, what I'd like to say to Kyle is that if you're not teaching hands-on rescue in your class, because you can teach those skills in a safe environment, that you're missing a big part of what rescuing somebody in whitewater is all about.
I mean, I think you're missing the thing that whitewater rescue is all about.
I agree with you. But now, just to kind of turn the tables, and you guys have to admit that you've done this before. If someone's swimming in the middle of the river and it's not a big deal, have you ever stayed like just out of reach so that they wouldn't grab you and like flip you over?
I mean, we paddle. I mean, you like on the lower yacht.
I've never done that, Eric.
Oh, please. Any
I
commercial
do it all the time.
run, you're like, the last thing you want to do is be rescuing people. You know what I mean? You've been doing it all day. Yeah.
I've actually hit people's hands with my paddle when they tried to reach up for my grab hook. Just like, no, just swim down the middle, and when we get to the bottom, I'll pull you in.
All right,
I had a very funny conversation with the safety boat on the upper yacht, who will go unnamed, but he knows who he is, was talking about being in the middle of a raft on the upper yacht with a very heavy individuals clinging onto their boat and having to roll over and then roll very fast to snap the wrist free of his grab loop before he gets pulled over the next rapid.
No, having a panicked person attached to your boat in a Class 4 rapid is no fun.
No.
We got some other great listener mail here, but we are over an hour right now, guys, so we have got to start winding this thing down. We've got some good emails from Simon, a few other people.
Can we address the GoPro question?
The GoPro
Kevin
helmet.
Cripps.
Kevin Cripps?
Yeah.
GoPro helmet on safety?
He's been booted off the show twice now. So
Okay, let's special Kevin Cripps segment here. So Kevin asked about the safety of having cameras attached to your helmet. Do you guys have an opinion on this?
I categorically do not want to be seen with a camera on my helmet. Period. To me, that is such a statement that I do not want to make. So it takes care of itself for me.
Yeah, no, I'm with John, and I think it does affect your safety because if you have a GoPro on your helmet, I'm not rescuing you either. So, so it is definitely not safe to have a GoPro on your helmet.
I might rescue the camera.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that moves us into your favorite segment of the show, our rants and raves. And I would like to start us off this week, if that works for you fellas. And I have a rant. Oh. And I got a rave. I got a rant and a rave. First of all,
do not take too much time because I have a rant that's been burning my insides.
Okay.
We'll send you last.
Okay.
John.
Like a hot fire.
We'll let you close the show with an atomic boom.
Yeah.
All right.
So my rant is on people.
Can I go yet?
Hang on. My rant is on people who pick their dog poop up in little poop bags, tie it up, and leave it on the side of the trail. Is that a thing? Is that a thing where you guys are at? I'm seeing this all over the place.
I've never seen that.
I've never seen either. This is strictly Telluride.
It's the Telluride thing.
It was all over Telluride. I don't know if they got like a poop removal service on the trails out there or what's up with it, but there was dog crap everywhere. Like every half mile, there was a little tied up baggie of dog poop. So I'm going to rant about that. And then I'm going to rave about Colorado. And I've always ranted about Colorado. But the reason I ranted about Colorado is because I was going there for the wrong reason. I was going there for the whitewater. But if you go to Colorado for the high alpine trail running or hiking or try to go skiing, you can rave about it all day long because it's great. So I have a new love for Colorado.
Telluride, Colorado.
Yeah, Telluride. San Juan Mountains.
You have expensive taste, my friend.
To tag onto that rave, I mean, the kids' parks they have out there are phenomenal.
Oh my
God!
God.
You got little rugrats. Oh man, Colorado's the place to be.
Dude, they're like just on the side of the road. This like $250,000 kids park. You're like, all right, here I am.
Well, I have to rant about people that contact you about 20 minutes before a podcast and expect you to come on and contribute in any kind of way. So, I mean, the swag you guys are getting out of me, just so the public knows, is because I was literally contacted 20 minutes before the show and pulled away from my extremely important duty of making beer and serving the community. And so it's no one's fault but your own. So take it and shove it.
Well, thank you for that rant, Eric. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
All right, drop some bombs, Weld.
All right, this is something I noticed happening throughout. It's been building for the past year or so, and then my wife Kara was at the Upper Yacht race, timing the race, and she came home and mentioned this to me, and my immediate response was, yes, what the heck is going on here? And I'll tell you what it is. Why are people holding their hands so close together on their paddles? I mean, a foot apart. And they come blazing down the river with their hands a foot apart, rocking back and forth. Never mind the 2-degree offset they have, so their wrists are cocked at all sorts of crazy angles. But their hands are close together. It looks moronic, right? It's driving me crazy. And I had to find an answer as to why this is happening. And I have it somewhere here. I called Max Blackburn, a sales rep and paddler extraordinaire out in Hood River, and he's in the heart of this. And he he had an answer for me. He knew where this came from. You ready? You know who started this?
Who?
According to Max, Evan Garcia. You know why?
Why?
Because you hold your hands close together, you can, it says it right here, you can lay treats. Right? You get leverage off the paddle and you can lay treats.
Well, there you have it. I don't know what to say to that.
I mean, the obvious thing is if you're paddling a 192 centimeter paddle, to get any leverage, you're going to have to hold your hands 6 inches apart. So if we all paddled the correct length paddle, good old 202 like I have, and I'm only 5'9", we'd have leverage. I'm with you on this, Rand, John. I think it's ridiculous. The short paddles people are using, they aren't learning to paddle properly. You aren't getting the right balance. It's annoying.
Right. And have you guys noticed this? The hands too close together? This drives me crazy. It drives
the
me
laying
nuts.
treats. I mean, I might try it to see if I can lay some treats.
My forearms hurt just thinking about it. And I'll tell you another thing about offsets. I have it on good authority that Jim Snyder, right? Now, Jim Snyder, from squirt boating fame and wood building, paddle building fame. He has done extensive research on the optimum offset of a paddle. And he puts it, I think, at 60 degrees as the optimum offset for a paddle. And he has given this an extensive hours and hours worth of thought.
Can someone please make a breakdown at 60 degrees so I can use a 60-degree paddle? I went to 45 just because I couldn't get a breakdown paddle at 78 degrees or whatever. So
right.
I mean, I still can't roll on my left because of it, but still, it's like.
So this is kind of a combo rant between short paddles, hands too close, and treat laying.
This is disintegration of paddling values as we understand it.
It's an embarrassment. It is.
It's an embarrassment. Yeah. Grace, you've seen this on the green, haven't you?
It drives me nuts. I'm with you 100%. Okay. I just can't look at anything else. Like I'll see somebody come down running a rapid or whatever, and
they're rocking back and forth.
Yeah,
that's the crazy thing. You know what I mean?
I immediately lose.
They're laying treats, dude.
No, they're not. They're doing anything but laying treats.
They're wrapping dog poop and dropping it all along the side of the green and leaving it there is what they're doing. It's the wrong kind of treats.
I think we'll end the Hammer Factor episode number 30 on that note. Please, if you don't mind, give us a review on the iTunes. We've got about 8 or 10 up there. I'd love to see a couple more. And I don't know. Until next time, drink a cold
links to everything we talked about today on the website, right?
Yep, links to everything on the website. We'll get this thing up ASAP, and we will see you next episode.
All right, thanks, Eric.
Thanks for having me, guys. Have a good one.
Thanks, Eric.